Well, if you've been keeping up, more power to you. If not, we'll try to catch you up, and you certainly can check out all of our websites to catch up here on what's gone on this National Signing Day. This is a special mic'd up, Mike and Mike in the evening edition here of our show on Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now, and all throughout the Now family of networks. As today, a special day around the network, National Signing Day. A lot of action going on throughout our network, most notably the Pitt Panthers coming off their special season, their ACC title, and trying to rebuild it again, trying to not have it be a cliff that they fall off and keep on moving. And that's what every college program has to do, West Virginia and Penn State as well, that we cover. So feel free to chat along. We'll go to any questions that I see from any of you in the chat as we are live for this broadcast. If not, we're just going to talk amongst ourselves. But of course, a lot has gone on today, and most notably for our flagship team, the Pitt Panthers. And we will touch on, of course, our thoughts on the transfer chaos, as well as the futures of these programs. Mike is Mike Vukovcan. I'm Mike Asti. Just to get us underway here, and there were some surprises. Pitt able to win some recruiting battles, lose some recruiting battles. Obviously, question marks about potential transfers and things like that to regroup for next year. But just overall, before we unpack everything, what's your takeaway from to this point on National Signing Day for the Pitt Panthers? Obviously, more work can be done and will be done. But what are your instant takeaways, positive and negative, from the Pitt perspective?
Well, the first thing I want to do is just caution Pitt fans, because I know sometimes how they react. You can't look at this is different circumstances for Pitt this year. I know everyone, the first thing anyone wants to do when talking about a recruiting class is say, what rank were they? You can't do that. It's the first thing before I get into any individual stuff. Sure. When you're only dealing with 10, 12 scholarships, you're not gonna rank highly. I don't care who you are. Pitt, because of COVID and players coming back, having the opportunity to come back by the NCAA, they were only able to add. They might add another player, but it's doubtful. More likely, they'll probably pick up a transfer or two. But as far as their high school kids, they might be done. I would say there's probably a better than 90% chance they're not going to pick anybody up. So their ranking is going to stay where it is. You can't fixate on that. Next year, we'll see if they get back to the normal 20-some scholarships, and then you can fairly evaluate how a team did. As far as Pitt this year, I think it always starts with the lines. This team, you need an offensive line, you need a defensive line, especially defense with Pitt. And I think
we saw the offensive line and defensive line stepping up this year, especially the offensive line really helping Pickett in the offense. That's an underrated part of the offensive success.
Yeah, and despite only having 10, 12 scholarships to hand out, Pitt signed a 4-star offensive tackle who many people believe will be a beast and a guy that will fight for early playing time. Ryan Bear from Eastlake, Ohio. He's a guy, mammoth kid, 6'8", 330 pounds, just a monster of a man. And he's anytime you only add one offensive lineman, and he's able to be a 4-star kid, you did a good job. On the defensive line, we know that's where Pitt bread is buttered. They win with their defensive line. Their defense, when it has success, it's because their defense is able to get to the quarterbacks. And I think Pitt landed 3 really good players. As far as anything that I'm high on, I think their defensive line, what they added today, they added a kid from Central Valley who I think should be a 4-star recruit, Sean Fitzsimmons. I think if he played for a bigger high school in the WPIL, he would no doubt be a 4-star kid. But you look at his tape, he's just at times almost unblockable. He's going to go in as a defensive tackle. And then they added a guy named Jimmy Scott from New York, who has 20-some offers, a lot of high major offers, Pitt prototype defensive end. And then a kid that was kind of a surprise today, and their only real surprise of the day is they won a recruiting battle to get a 4-star defensive end from Boston, Samuel Okaluna. And
you practiced saying his name a few times. You did well there.
He has all you need to know about him is he has 55 scholarship offers,
right,
including ones from Clemson and Georgia. So the kid can play. Pitt won that battle, and that's the highlight for me. Is I think Pitt took care of themselves on both lines, which bodes well for the future.
And I do think it's important to note, as you did at the top of the show, that the recruiting rank it's where people are going to look immediately, but it's not always everything. It's not going to tell the whole story. You have to get out on the field, and there's different circumstances. People do also see, well, Pitt had their best season in 40 years. They should just dominate and have their best recruiting class in 40 years. That's not always how it works either. So that's important to note here. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti here in our special.
I think we could see a ripple effect next year, Mike, because
that makes sense.
Yeah, because Pitt won the championship in December. Right. Now they're on the road for 2023. Those coaches are no doubt selling kids in next year's class already. We're the ACC champions, and we're going to be back. So I think you could see, as you just mentioned there, impact of them winning a championship. I think you could see the benefits of that come next recruiting class.
Yeah, and Pat Narduzzi, even when he was criticized and even prior to the championship year, he's always been a solid recruiter. He's had solid recruiting classes before, so that's never really been a concern by Pat Narduzzi. So I would not imagine that wouldn't occur. I wouldn't imagine there would be any concern that would not be a ripple effect in the positive direction for Pitt. Again, here our National Signing Day recap. Here our nighttime edition of Mic'd Up here on Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now. You did mention Fitzsimmons. We actually have a video here on Pittsburgh Sports Live of his thoughts on signing with Pitt, and I do think that's going to be an underrated signing. Central Valley, able to win championships there, but we're not talking about a behemoth of a program that nationally people are going to be aware of. We're not talking about a North Allegheny or a Central Catholic, even Woodland Hills, that people around the country are going to say, oh, I remember they won championships years ago. I remember this kid came out of there. Yeah. You're not going to have that. Central Valley is a program that hasn't even been around for 20 years, and they're setting their own dynasty course. But he could be that figure, and he also has so much of a maturity. I don't know how many Pittsburgh fans will enjoy the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bandana if he's going to keep on wearing that. But outside of that, I think he's certainly going to be something that Pittsburgh fans are going to fall in love with. So I do think that's a fantastic move for the Panthers.
Yeah, he's a kid. I had him actually when I did the interview. He lives fairly close to me, probably 10 minutes from me. So he came over the house yesterday, and we take the interview here. Very mature kid.
Right.
Comes from a tremendous family. One thing you won't see, I can guarantee you with Sean, as much as I can guarantee something.
It's hard in this world, but yeah.
In this world, exactly. Right. He has a lot of Kenny Pickett in him. Okay. In that he is all business, very mature. There will be no side distract. There'll be none of the other stuff. Sean Simmons will be there to get an education. He'll be there. He'll work his ass off. And I wouldn't be surprised if I think with the players they have coming back, I think it would be a stretch for him to have any sort of impact next year. But to get a year of him in the weight room,
yeah,
I think I wouldn't be surprised.
That's the only thing. Maybe a little undersized. He doesn't look as muscular, maybe, as you'd want.
Yeah, he's 6'3", 270, 275.
Yeah, so that's okay. Yeah.
2 years from now, year in the weight room, eating right there, he'll probably tip 290.
Right.
And, I would say his redshirt sophomore year, he'll probably be fighting for some playing time. I think with the players they have coming back next year, it's probably a stretch. Elliot Donald didn't even play this year, and he was a 4-star kid.
Right.
Because of depth. So that's a good problem to have if you're Pitt. But I'm just as far as the type of person and player and work ethic and the way he's raised, Pitt hit a 5-star with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's also was a leader on his high school team. So that leadership and that maturity will be able to get on the field for the Pitt Panthers as well. Now, Mike, obviously Pitt's coming off a championship season. You might see that ripple effect more next year. Pitt still had a solid recruiting class this year, and all of that coverage is over there on Pittsburgh Sports Now and will continue to be throughout the rest of the week, as well as on WV Sports Now and Nittany Sports Now for what the Mountaineers and Nittany Lions did, as we're covering it all here throughout the Sports Now network. But sticking back to Pitt, it wasn't all roses for the Panthers. They dipped their hat in the ring for a 4-star receiver, and they lost out to Auburn, a program that is in the SEC, is in the South, is going to have that cachet there. They certainly have won a more recent national title, but not necessarily a program that's right now having tons of success. They get an upset or two every now and then. They played Alabama tough, but they have a tough road in that SEC, and they haven't really been a top dog in a while due to Alabama having a dynasty rolling, and even LSU as well. And Pitt ends up losing Cam Brown, the 4-star receiver, to Auburn. How big of a hit is this for the Panthers as they look to retool some weaponry as well with Addison as an All-American? He's not going to be around forever, obviously. Kenny Pickett gone. How big of a hit is this to Pitt? How surprised maybe were you with Auburn being the selection? It's an SEC school that's never surprising. But what does this mean for Pitt, as this is kind of the negative news of the day for the Panthers? They do lose this 4-star receiver they did have their eye on and actually thought they had a chance to get.
Yeah, I thought they were going to get him. I was actually just talking to them. I remember when I talked to these guys, I have to pick out what they're saying, what they're trying to get me to believe it's actually true. But the one thing that stood out to me was the fact that I said, why is Pitt still on your radar? What, after you decommitted from them, what is it about them that, still has them there? And he talked about Pitt's, and this stood out to me, and I think Pitt sold him on this. And they said that he told me that he wants to catch a lot of balls in college. He wants to wants to go to a passing offense, and there's no team that were among his finalists that threw the ball as much as Pitt did. And he felt as though he'd be able to showcase his talents best in Pitt's offense. I don't know. It makes sense to me.
Yeah. And Pitt also had a lineage of wide receiver university.
Yeah. They have the Blitnikoff winner. He talked about, he was impressed with what Pitt, Brendan Marion did with the development of Jordan Addison.
Yeah.
It just added up, but went to Auburn. You could draw whatever conclusions you but I think we'll see. I think he's a talented kid. We'll see if that offense fits him.
It's a different offense. That's a different offense. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think Pitt's would have been better, but hey, he chooses what he wants. Am I worried? No, because I think Pitt's offense, I think they're going after some transfer receivers, and I think they'll pick something up. And if not, they'll get somebody next year. But I think with this type of offense they have, I think it's going to sell itself to good receivers. If it's not Cam Brown this year, they'll get somebody next year. They have enough guys on the roster for next year, enough talented guys that it's not that big of a deal. As long as they were to parlay it next year and get somebody, that's pretty high. But anytime you're in the running for a 4-star kid, you like to try to close the deal. They weren't able to, but they were in the final 2 with him, and he went with Auburn. So best of luck to Cam.
Yeah, and absolutely. And we got to have a disclaimer for this show, as well as all of our coverage here, that whatever decision these kids make, you got to respect. It's the decision that they are making and their family is making, and whatever reasons you may feel are leading them that way, and whatever anyone's opinion is about their fit or whether it's a good or bad decision, it's theirs. So obviously you got to respect the decision no matter what.
Well, that's something I've battled for years. I get messages from people, and
they
think that because I write about this and I follow it and I write articles, most of them are for Pitt. Not that I'm for Pitt, but they're slanted toward Pitt.
Right.
That I'm going to be upset, or I don't care. I'll sleep and I sleep good at night. I don't give a damn where Cam Brown goes.
Right.
Or any of these guys.
You sleep good, and even you sleep well, even if your dog's trying to fight you for the bed there.
No, that's a different story. But as long as they're not a member of my family, I don't care where these kids
Right.
go. If they go to Pitt, I hope they go to Pitt because I want Pitt to be good. It's good for us. But
Sure.
if they don't, I don't.
Yeah,
I
it was
don't.
great for business this past season for
Yeah,
sure.
I
They
don't
can't
hold
lie
it
about
against.
that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't hold it
but
against. I don't
yeah.
hold it against these kids. I don't. Hey, whatever they think, and hopefully they go on to have good careers.
Yeah, and everyone makes decisions for different reasons. The only reason why this is worth a conversation is because Pitt was in line for a four-star recruit. They were a runner-up. They did lose to an SEC school, which still makes you pretty in there. I mean, a lot of schools lose out to SEC schools, but for Pitt to be a runner-up to an SEC school is still kind of a big deal for a four-star. They do need to replace that position. It is clear they're probably going to be able to do it. Pitt has been able to recycle wide receivers in the past. Addison, the most recent here, stepping up as a Blitnikoff award. But as he was a finalist there. Any thoughts at all to the uncertainty around Pitt's offensive coordinator, even though you mentioned Marion being there and he's going to carry over, Whipple no longer being there? Obviously, that helping Pickett offensively, Pitt emerging with Pickett last year, but Pickett's not going to be there. So there's still an uncertainty at the quarterback position, even though Patty's there and some do believe in him. Any factor maybe that played into Cam Brown's mind that, hey, I like the offense, but there's uncertainty there. And I know as an SEC school, I'm going to get on national TV. Pitt, it'll be on national TV less. And now I have uncertainty of my numbers. I'll just go down south.
I think that's a fair point to ask. Once Cam made his decision, I didn't follow up with trying to talk to him, but that very well.
It's the elephant in the room right now.
Yeah, maybe that was in his mind. I'm sure, though. Narduzzi and Brennan Marion.
I'm sure
we're telling him that, hey, we're gonna, no matter who the offensive coordinator is, whoever I hire, this will be our MO. So I'm going to be bringing in a guy that did what Mark Whipple did. So I'm sure they sold that on him. It might have played into it, but. One thing that a guy that is kind of going underlooked a little bit is he's a guy that has the same body type, a guy over wide receiver that Pitt was able to sign today. His name's Addison Copeland, just like Cam Brown. He's 6'3", he's 195. He's from Buffalo, New York. And, he had offers from Penn State, Notre Dame, and a couple other kids. He wasn't a four-star kid. He didn't have close to 30 offers like Cam Brown did. But anytime you're offered by Notre Dame and Penn State, you got talent. So they did bring in a guy. This kid scores.
They're offering nationally. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So he's a national recruit. He signed with Pitt early, so he kind of just fell off and didn't. Very, very private kid, so he didn't get a lot of attention. But his tape, they obviously like him, and who knows? Maybe he comes in and maybe he's the next Jordan Addison. So they did add a receiver, just somebody that didn't get as much play as Cam Brown did. But Pitt fans should remember Addison Copeland from Buffalo, New York.
And I don't know if anybody thought Jordan Addison would become what he became right away, walking on the field for Pitt the first time. So Pitt has been able to churn these receivers. I'm sure they're going to find somebody. That obviously was an interesting situation for the Panthers to even be runner-up for a guy like Cam Brown. And when there's uncertainty there, that could maybe play into it. I will shamelessly plug our recent show there on the Mark Whipple situation and his exit from Pitt and the future of the program that we also produced here on Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now. Look in the Mike Up playlist here on PSL, Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti. Now,
hey, Mike, I want to bring up one other thing before
go ahead.
This, because you mentioned Jordan Addison, and I said I touched upon it a couple minutes ago about they'll try to get somebody next year. Yeah. The guy they're going to try to get is a guy that everyone around here knows about, and they're selling. I talked to him last week. They're selling him on replacing Jordan Addison because Pitt believes Jordan Addison will take off for the NFL after next year because he'll be draft eligible. Is Rodney Gallagher from Laurel Highlands, 4-star kid. He's the number one junior in Pennsylvania for next year. He's the top recruit in Pennsylvania for next year. Yeah, his offers from everybody. Pitt wants him bad. They want him as a receiver. They want him to be the next Jordan Addison. So that will be the guy a year from now. Hopefully we're still talking like this. and we're still doing this.
Sure.
This is the guy that we, if you're a Pitt fan, this is the guy you want us to be talking about next year, because if Pitt has a recruiting board for juniors that they want, it's probably already up in their recruiting room. Rodney Gallagher from Laurel Highlands is somewhere, I don't know what number he is, but he's pretty high on that list, and he would be a perfect replacement next year for Jordan Addison.
And what is he going to probably be looking at? Pitt's quarterback position, how Addison responds and plays with somebody else that's not Kenny Pickett. All of that could play a factor. Of course, again, there's confidence around Patty or whoever it may be. That certainly could be a factor to a young kid. It's wide receiver university. They're putting up points. They have a great offense, but now the Heisman candidate is gone. Addison emerged with him. Whipple is gone. All these individual awards were there, but now they're gone in terms of those individuals being around. How does this offense continue on? So another great year for Pitt certainly could help add on and impress those players. And when you have a player like Addison, you can recruit and basically say, you want to be the next Jordan Addison, rather than have to say you want to be the first of this because it hasn't happened in a while. We know we have a body of work that shows you just last year, just the year before that, we had success at that position. So that's definitely a big deal here, Mike. Any comments on Pitt's recruiting class year 2022 in terms of just in general? Anything else you have on Pitt's recruiting class? I do obviously want to get to our thoughts here on the transfer chaos, because that's a major topic on these current rules, if they're now fair or maybe if it's now unfair and the players kind of being able to do whatever they want, like coaches always were able to do, but some have a major problem with it and do think it's kind of killing college football. A lot of transfer portal moves all across the country that are even still to be out there, but a lot of major quarterbacks are just moving to a team. It's like the NFL, change teams one year after the other and immediately could help that new program in a blink of an eye. Not the case years ago. So we do have to get to that topic as well.
Yeah. The only thing I want to say is he won't be officially counted as a member of, I do expect Pitt to add at least probably 2 players via transfer before we get into the transfer role. And these guys don't get counted as players in the class of 2022, but a guy
we talked about Whipple talking to Purdy.
That's the guy
quarterback over from Nebraska. Yeah.
That's who everyone's going to be having their eye on right now. He made a visit.
Yeah.
He's another guy that has been very quiet. I've tried to everything I could to try to I get messages here and there, but he's obviously keeping things close to the vest. He doesn't have like these other kids that have till Friday to make their decision, and then it closes down until February. He can decide whatever he wants to. It could be next week, and then he decides, hey, I want to go here, I want to go there. So It could be at any time. It's good that he was at Pitt, but I wouldn't, for Pitt fans that are optimistic and say, well, that's the only place he's been so far. Just keep in mind, before he committed to Florida State, he made other visits. So he was able to take in some other places. The one reason he came to Pitt was because that was a place that he didn't visit before going to Florida State. He wanted to, acclimate himself to Pittsburgh.
He might have thought more of Pitt now than years ago.
Yeah, it could very well could be. But he also, I've heard some things to say, oh, that's a good sign for Pitt that he hasn't taken any other visits.
Right.
It is, but it isn't, because he's been to other places before. He wasn't at Pitt. That's why he came here. Right. So I like Pitt's chances. Am I guaranteeing it? No. But if he would be in the running, if the quarterback for next year, I expect some movement on the Pitt quarterback roster. And one guy that I think is getting discounted by a lot of Pitt fans, and I know that the Pitt staff is high on him, and they believe that he would be able to, if necessary, step in and run this offense, is Nick Patty. I know people are just
some are high on him.
Some people don't
not.
think exactly. People don't think he can do. When I say people, I mean fans.
Right.
Pitt coaches are very high on him. They think he can get the job done, but it wouldn't be a bad thing to bring Purdy in and have some competition. And it'll be between those two guys. The other guys on the roster, if Purdy comes in, your starter next year will be Purdy or Patty. One of those two guys. That'll be your the other guy.
It'll be something if Purdy comes in, though, he doesn't get the job.
Yeah,
because then you're transferring again. I mean, he's going to have to get out of there again.
But then he'd have to sit out a year.
He would have to sit out, right? But I mean, if you're not playing,
yeah, but he would have 4 years if he came here. Patty would have 1 more year.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, so I don't think if he reacts like that, then I don't know. I wouldn't be real high on his character if he would do something.
That's true. Yeah,
you battle, and whoever the best guy is wins. And if you're not it, then you get better and be better next year. But that's the big thing for Pitt fans to be watching here over the next from now until whenever. What quarterback? But there's other quarterbacks in that transfer portal. Who knows who's Pitt's talked to?
So that's what I'm saying. There's a lot out there.
Yeah, so they're going to bring in a quarterback. It's just a matter of who.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say it's more likely Patty or the field
to start?
Yeah. So I guess we're looking at, if like you had to predict, you think it's
I don't know. Depends who the starter is. I don't know.
Yeah,
somebody with. I don't know. I honestly think that nobody can make that prediction because I think Narduzzi would.
I wouldn't hold you to it, but
no, Narduzzi. It'll be what these guys show him in.
That's true.
Spring practice.
It does appear, though, that the players on that team, the coaches, as you mentioned, from what we've heard from colleagues, even, I won't disclose who, but even from players, they seem to believe in Patty. So there seems to be a belief in Patty for sure that I don't think Pitt fans need to freak out if Patty is starting and you haven't seen him in successful game action yet. Yeah, maybe you're not at camp, but there's belief in him that he could get the job done. So I would not expect that if he is the starter for that to be the sky is falling and all of a sudden Pitt wins only 4 games. That prohibitive drop should not occur, even with Patty there.
I will say this with your question to me, Mike.
Can handle it.
Who whatever quarterback they bring in here, they're going to have to beat out Nick Patty. I think Patty goes in as the.
That's fair.
Patty goes in as the favorite. Whoever comes in here is going to have to beat him. Is going to have to beat him out because Pitt knows what they have with him. They've watched him for 2 years now. They know what they would be getting. They don't know what they're getting with whatever quarterback they transfer in here.
And that could be a concern if you're the agent or, not the agent literally, but if you're someone who's going to be the agent or if you're a close relationship with Purdy or whoever that maybe, hey, if you go here, you don't have to worry about a competition. If you go to Pitt, you are going to be competing with Patty.
Yeah.
But again, you want to think you guys are going to want to compete and going to beat him out. And if you don't, then you'll take it over after Patty's done because
it'll be fun.
More time. But it'll be interesting for Pitt for sure. There's a lot of conversation to be had, and it's a good conversation because you're going to, generally speaking, when you have a Heisman candidate quarterback, usually he's leaving after that year. So it's a normal thing. And Pitt was able to seize the day with Kenny Pickett, able to have a maturation process with Kenny Pickett. If it's Marion or somebody else, it's not going to be catastrophically changed in terms of their offensive system, even with Whipple not being there. And there is belief in Patty for sure. Yeah.
And Narduzzi said today he doesn't expect to. So, there might be a few more weeks where the kid doesn't have to come in here to make his decision or to get acclimated because Narduzzi did his press conference today, said that, I'm paraphrasing him, but he said, he doesn't expect to name the full-time offensive coordinator until January. So don't look for.
Yeah, you're not going to know. Right.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter. The quarterback can come in here. He's not going to be able to learn a system because there's not going to be a full-time offensive coordinator. He can get, he can get used to his receivers and stuff like that. But as far as learning a system coming in early, studying the book, there won't be a book because there won't be a full-time coordinator according
unless he wants to meet Pickett, who will teach him some plays. I'm sure he can maybe meet Pickett. I'm sure Pickett will know some plays, and we could have the joke out there that Alan Saunders brought up is, hey, just let Pickett be the O coordinator for the bowl game, for the Peach Bowl if he doesn't want to play, because obviously that's still lingering out there. Let him be the OC. So yeah, that's true. You're not going to be able to meet that offensive coordinator. Purdy already met a former Pitt offensive coordinator with that picture that's circulating that we talked about the day before that news broke that Mark Whipple was leaving for Nebraska. He did meet Mark Whipple and got the offer there in person that was an odd experience, but Mark Whipple not going to be the OC at Pitt. So if Purdy does come, he's yet to know who that OC will be. Marion will have certainly some input, whether he gets the job or not. And I guess that could still happen, but he's certainly going to be involved. So Pitt will be fine offensively, really probably whoever's quarterback, and Purdy certainly does garner some belief out there. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti here on our nighttime edition of Mic'd Up here. Mike and Mike in the evening as we're recapping the National Signing Day around the country, most notably for the Pitt Panthers here on Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now. Now, Mike, we also got to talk about the overlying topic that just is all over everywhere, and I don't think this is going to die in either until the rules changed or until maybe things get so wild that people just cannot keep up, and right now it's already to that level. The transfer rule allows players to just kind of move around. It's almost this year, it's almost like free agency. Really, in terms of college football, certainly quarterbacks are making these moves. We've seen Spencer Rattler go from not even 4 months ago as the future of Oklahoma to losing his job, to his coach taking another job at USC, to now he goes to South Carolina. And that was in less than a year. So that chaos is occurring all around the country because of the current rule system. For many, many years, players would have to sit out. It was almost a punishment, and it was in their detriment to transfer, that unless you really got some problems and you really need more time, you don't want to transfer because you're killing your young days. If you have to sit out and not play at 21 years old or 20 years old, that really hurts you. Nowadays, that's not the case, but coaches for all those years were able to just take jobs and leave before a bowl game, and the new school they're going to would pay the buyout. So you had kind of that unbalanced atmosphere around college sports, and you also now have the ability to make money off your image and likeness. That wasn't the case a couple of years ago as well. So these players aren't getting paid for their everyday, but they're able to make money off their likeness. If you have a Johnny Manziel out there in today's game, he can go make money off of being Johnny Manziel, or say the offensive lineman probably would not be able to do so. Where do you stand on the current climate around college football? Do you see this as potentially the death nail to college football? Does there need something done to adjust things, to fix things? Does something need to happen here to calm this down? Or do you see this as kind of making this now an even playing field since coaches? And we saw this year with Brian Kelly, Lincoln Riley, etc., able to just say, hey, bye, send a text message, throw it up on Twitter, and they're gone. The new school pays the buyout. Kids weren't ever able to do that until now, and they're really taking advantage of
it. It's awful. There's no other way to put it. It's just bad. And, we're focusing on basketball, and it's bad for football. It's just as bad or worse for basketball.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that before.
It's
arguably worse. It's arguably more active with basketball.
Yeah.
We saw last year with the transfer portal.
It just makes it so, and I understand the talk, what you mentioned about the coaches leaving and everything, but it just changes everything with the way coaches are able to deal with these kids.
Yeah.
I think it puts pressure on some of these coaches to try to get these kids on the field maybe early before maybe they're ready.
We've heard that directly from coaches. I won't mention
because if not, they're going to be mad and they're going to transfer.
Right.
If you look at a kid the wrong way, depending on what your personality is, they can leave, or they'll be inclined to leave.
Sure. They could threaten to leave if you don't change how you're talking to them. Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
And the NLI, all it's going to do is that goes along with the transferring, because no matter what anyone says, teams from all around the country are tampering with other players. They're seeing who's playing, who's not playing. They're telling you, hey, you come here, this thing could be available. All it's doing is encouraging cheating. It's what's going on. Did you hear?
You had the number one recruit in the country going to an HBCU in Jackson State with Deion Sanders instead of Florida State. That's kind of a red flag, right?
Yeah. How do you think that really? How do you think that happened?
That's a red flag.
He wants to go play for Jackson State. Hell,
Deion's there, but that's a red flag.
It doesn't matter. He was going to go to Florida State, and
forever.
Who knows what's in his bank account now? or his parents' bank account. It's just slime. With Lane Kiffin and this Lane Kiffin last night. Go look what he said.
Oh yeah.
All this is doing is kids are going to go to the highest bidder.
They are.
If Lane Kiffin is saying that,
probably at Ole Miss. If you remember, watch the movie
exactly.
Blindside. Watch the movie Blindside if you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. If he's saying that, so when people lose, and this is why I have a hard time, and we'll get back to Jeff Capel. When people are not getting recruits, it's not what it used to be 10, 15 years ago. It's complete.
It's not really a criticism of you as a recruiter as much.
Exactly. Everything has changed. Everything has changed. It's how much you want to cheat, how much you're willing to cheat, how much money your boosters have, how much can you get from businesses to get. It's
what about the perspective though, Mike? And there's even a movie actually that I think everyone should watch as well called Pony Express, one of the best ESPN 30 for 30s ever on SMU back in the early 80s. They got robbed out of what could have been a dynasty with Eric Dickerson and company. They were flat out signing contracts to players when it was legit cheating, and that's how they eventually got found out, because they had to finish out legally the contracts even after they agreed to stop. But they weren't the only school doing it. They got the death penalty and it basically killed the program. But Texas A&M also paid Eric Dickerson. They got him a car that's referred to poetically as the Trans A&M that he was driving at SMU. So it's called cheating, but it's been going on for years and years and years. Now it's just more out in the open.
The only difference is that was happening for the most part, with the Eric Dickersons of the world. You're talking about your
for the most part, but the others were getting paid, just not to his level.
Now it's everywhere. It is everywhere.
Right.
And all you're going to do, the transfer portal, every year we talk about this, the number in the kids in there, it's just going to, every year, it'll be a new record high. And if your program doesn't have any transfers, maybe it also changes the way coaches, what kids they go after. Kids that they believe could be program players. They might look more into character, may look more in the background.
You may look at to dominate three. This is what people say Capel should do. Just dominate 3-star kids and leave the 5-star alone, because you're dealing with this. So just go at certain level of kids. Maybe.
And I feel bad for, I'm going to keep bringing up basketball. And I feel bad for guys like Dambrot and
Dambrot's one.
Because when you're in the middle right there, you better treat these kids really good, because if not, they're gone. And the teams that are going to benefit are the Robert Morrises of the world. What Andy Toole was able to do this year, he has a roster full of 5 or 6 kids that used to play.
That's what you got to do. Yeah.
With power programs. That's what schools like Robert Morris now are going to be doing. They're going to be plucking the kids that were unhappy,
as they should.
They should.
College, but Mike, we even saw last year, and this is across our network as well, Bob Huggins. He's not in there yet, but I'm going to call him a Hall of Fame coach, because he definitely should be. 900 plus wins, done it all basically, besides winning a national title. He had a solid top flight national recruit there, who eventually got to Kentucky, which is obviously even a higher level program. And Huggins has been very public, even criticizing the kid 2 weeks ago that we have on the channel, basically saying, hey, yeah, he got to where he wanted to be, but basically letting you know there might have been some collusion going on there with, maybe he didn't like me, so now he's with Coach Cal. So it's not like anyone's safe. A Hall of Fame coach could lose a top recruit because of the way they're talking to him and go somewhere else. So yeah, that's all possible. It's all very true. I guess what I would then ask here as a follow-up, because it isn't a debate that the system was previously unfair, but now it is out of control. So what would you do if Mike Vukovcan is able to be in charge here and you're living your dream to get this under control with the understanding that you're never going to be able to put the genie back in the bottle completely, because with these coaches leaving, and there was a while where Brian Kelly could have screwed Notre Dame out of a playoff spot because the committee announced that, hey, we don't want to take a school that doesn't have a head coach. They were number five or six. They were right in line for a playoff spot if teams would have lost. If the certain things would have fell the right way, the committee probably would have snubbed them because they didn't have a head coach at the time. Brian Kelly didn't care. He went to go get his money, go get his, 100 M's and get his private jet. And he's onward and upward to LSU with a new accent, even a whole new lifestyle. And that, those kids kind of were just left to wait in the wings because some of those kids may have went to Notre Dame for him. So you also have the thought process of, look at Spencer Rattler, who I brought up earlier. He went to Oklahoma to play for a coach that churns NFL talent, that always gets Heisman candidates and has a certain offense. As you mentioned, it's a big deal for quarterbacks especially. He didn't have a great season, but they were winning. He loses his job. They then actually lose a couple games without him, and now he's gone. The coach is gone. He has to go somewhere else. If it was like it was before, Spencer Rattler would be screwed. So is there a way to get this under control but not screw kids like it used to be?
No. Basically, I'm in favor.
I appreciate the honesty, but yeah, you're right.
I'm in favor of the way they have it, the way they have it now. But you're just never gonna. The cheating is just something that nobody will ever,
right.
No matter what they try to do, they'll never get out of control, but under control. But I'm in favor of letting the kids have one transfer. And you don't
not 13, but yeah, one.
No,
right.
one transfer.
Right.
Make it a good one. You transfer. You don't have to sit out.
Yeah.
And then that's it. So I have no problem the way the system is now. It's just.
I mean, is it?
I would get rid of the NLI. That is
okay.
That's bad news. And I know kids can make. Trust me. The Kenny Pickett and the guys on the Pitt team, the guys that
right.
are giving their money
sure.
to charities and stuff,
yeah,
they're on the minority.
Under the minority, yeah. And fortunately for Kenny Pickett, and I think also the difference which we have to bring up here, Kenny Pickett was from a really stable family environment, things like that. There are kids. The reality is there's kids out there that are playing college sports to get to the pro level that are coming from nothing. Yeah. And if money's dangled in front of them, like they've talked about over the years, whether it be the Fab Five, Reggie Bush, or whoever, it's really hard to ask a kid to say no because you understand the situation that they're coming from. Not everyone's dealing with what Kenny Pickett's dealing with or what Grant Hill dealt with in the early 90s in terms of a great family upbringing who doesn't need to have this money right away. Some kids do. Things are out of control. You're going to have a kid eventually off of endorsements make more than the coach. So imagine that argument when you're off the NLI, the coach is saying do this and he's saying, I make more per year than you. Look at my endorsement money. So it does create an imbalance, like is in, say, the NBA or in pro sports in some regards. The players are making more than some coaches, at least the star players are. I think I would be vehemently against just paying kids, they make $1,000 a week. I think that would be a little bit much there, especially on top of a scholarship. But it is hard for me to be mad about the NLI because Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, even Reggie Bush, those players, look at JJ Redick, Carmelo Anthony, they were generating so much money. Maurice Clarett, who tried to leave after a year after winning a national title, they were generating so much money for their schools and somebody was pocketing that cash. So I'm not saying to pay them a salary, but if some barbershop wants to give them some money because of what they were generating when their jersey can't even give them money or their name can't be on the jersey. That's why the Fab Five wore blue shirts. They realized that people were getting paid off of the number 4 on a Michigan jersey that didn't say Weber, but it was Chris Webber's. I can see their perspective as well in terms of at least making off your image and likeness. And if you can do it, power to you. If you can't, then your image and likeness isn't worth the money. So the offensive lineman's going to get screwed. Hopefully you can make it in the NFL. I don't have as much of a problem with that, but this is all out of control and you're going to see it even get more and more out of control. And I don't think you can go in the direction, which is brought up a lot, that if a kid transfers that they should have to pay some scholarship money back to the school like coaches do with a buyout. The school the coach is going to pays that buyout. You can't ask that from a kid, but you shouldn't be able to have more than one transfer. You got to have the one, have that be it, but you got to make that one count. And situations do change. You know this, you've been studying recruiting so many years, that like a Spencer Rattler or many others, you go to a school for one situation, it changes. It's not your fault that it changes. He was even winning while he was there and still lost his job. So it's hard to say that kid doesn't deserve at least one opportunity to redo it. But if it doesn't work out at the new place, then hey, you made a decision. You got to live with it at that point here. As we round things out, though, Mike, we also do cover the West Virginia Mountaineers. We even cover Penn State. So certainly you can go head over to Nittany Sports Now and WV Sports Now. I'll have shows on their classes as well. Maybe my personal self, I'll do a mic drop on WVU because they do get a legit quarterback that they finally have been after for years. Neil Brown gets his dominant in the rough there, and Nico, that could be the future of the QB position, even though next year it certainly appears to be Jarrett Dagey again, as they're not even really looking at the transfer portal from what I'm hearing. But any thoughts on any other recruiting news or anything else from signing day beyond Pitt?
Both the headline of Penn State and West Virginia, we're going to find out a couple years from now, is how do these quarterbacks, their headliners, are they going to be able to lead them to, possibly a playoff spot? Penn State got a 5-star kid, number one, one of the, I'm not sure if he number one ranked quarterback by 247, Drew Allure from Ohio. And then Nick Singleton, Penn State also got a 5-star running back who today was named the Gatorade Player of the Year nationally, kid from out east. Those are the headliners for Penn State, but it's all about the quarterback. It's interesting that Sean Clifford decided to come back, so we'll see how James Franklin.
6 years of Clifford.
Handles that next year. He knows he has a good one.
Right.
We'll see what happens. Drew Allure is going to be enrolling early at Penn State, so he's going to want to play. We'll see how that happens. And then, of course, West Virginia, they got the guy that they had other kids decommit, but as long as the Nico stayed in there, the kid from Arizona, that's what they need. He's a headliner.
They have to. I mean, that would be the first quarterback that West Virginia recruited that became a star, if he becomes a star, in a very long time, because Will Brewer was a transfer. So this is Neil Brown's era, if this kid works out or not.
Yeah, they got a couple other. I think West Virginia. Last time, let me check out the latest team rankings by rivals. I believe they're still in the 20s.
I mean, they were 20 at one point when Carl and I did the show after KJ Anderson left. We talked about
20 kids. They have 20 kids plus a couple of transfers, but 20 high school kids. A rival has them at number 22. That's the best of the Brown era. We'll see if they add any more. They possibly could move up a little bit, depending on if they have room to sign some more people.
And that's losing KJ, who decommitted.
Exactly. And they lost two 4-star kids.
Right.
So they probably would have been in the top 20. Tremendous job by Neil Brown.
Unbelievable, because the team hasn't been winning for 3 years. He's from a mid-major at Troy before West Virginia. He is selling something.
So it's a tremendous job, but we'll see. That quarterback needs to produce, and that's what will define this class. And we won't be able to tell that for a year or two. But Penn State, top 10 class, number 6. I believe they had 14 4- or 5-star kids in their class. Unbelievable job by Franklin. It's the same thing every year. Can they develop the players, and can they stay? With the transfer thing, you just never know. You just never know. They have had a couple guys from last year's class, 4-star kids. They didn't play right away. Kid from Detroit, Enzo Jennings, he left. Didn't play right away, so he jumped out. So a lot of pressure on these coaches to get these high-star kids in there. We'll see if they do. But I think for all 3 classes, despite Pitt only having low number of scholarships, I think Narduzzi and company did as well. You could have maybe added a better player or two, but I think for the most part, Pitt fans should be happy. And no doubt West Virginia and Penn State fans, at least on paper, should be thrilled with what their coaches were able to bring them in.
Yeah, and Pitt coming off of the ACC title year, Penn State coming off a disappointing season, but a long-term contract for Franklin. No doubt, out of these three programs we cover, Neil Brown and West Virginia are under the most pressure for this class to work out. That'll be year 4 for Neil Brown. This year was arguably a step down from last year, getting in a decent bowl game, and at that point climbing. You have trust to climb, or you're really climbing. And also, West Virginia fans, this is a great recruit to get. Nico's been wanting to come there. They've been tweeting pictures forever. His family visited Morgantown 4 different times. They're flying across the country to be around Mountaineer fans. If he didn't come, it would have been ridiculous, but he does. But also don't expect to see much of him on the field for a while. Neil Brown is committed to Daggy next year for sure, and it's going to be another year of him learning this offense, potentially with Winston Wright, etc., that maybe they'll step up and do more even with Letty Brown gone. So it'll be a while before you really get to see Nico, probably. But it'll be interesting because at the end of next year, if the season's once again going into the tubes, there is no more Deggy coming back. So at that point, we'll see what happened. Garrett Green also was brought in. He was probably that other recruit that was brought in to be a quarterback. We ended up not really getting to see him hardly at all. And he kind of got in Neil Brown's doghouse as if they thought he could be a passer or not, kind of just used him as a runner. So a lot remains to be seen, but they got their guy despite losing KJ as well. Penn State, another one, death tax in Penn State in the top 10, but you got to do it on the field. You got to have the wins, losses dictate that. And Pitt, in their situation this year, they certainly did a solid job. And next year could even be more so, really getting the retread off of the ACC championship year. And even if next year's not an ACC crown again, which is not likely again after Pickett and with Clemson being better, etc., you go next year, win 7-8 games, you could really beef up. I mean, that's how this program continuously builds themselves now. As long as you don't totally fall off the map, Pitt should certainly be fine. That'll do it for this nighttime edition of Mike and Mike here on Pittsburgh Sports Live and PSN. Stay at Pittsburgh Sports Now for all of our coverage, our thoughts, our commentary on National Signing Day, maybe even more shows and commentary like this about National Signing Day and about the future of these programs. Also head over to WV Sports Now and Nittany Sports Now for a coverage of West Virginia and Penn State. And really, of course, hit up our entire network for all of our coverage of Pittsburgh sports and beyond, and subscribe. Bottom of the video there, you get notifications whenever we do shows like this, certainly when they are spur of the moment. Mike, I will leave you about your night. I will leave you to have a conversation with your dog to see who sleeps this evening. And I will go leave myself to have some dessert that I took home from our Christmas party, which again, thanks to you, that was a fantastic Christmas party throughout the network. We all got to come together, and I, at the Walnut Grill there in Robinson, definitely appreciate the time there to see everybody. I appreciate everybody who came to that, and I appreciate the hospitality there from the Walnut Grill in Robinson, and you putting that together. That was definitely you single-handedly putting that together. So props to you. Happy holidays to all, especially these kids who have made their decisions. And let me put it this way again, whatever decision they made, you may not like it. They may not have went to where you wanted them to go, and they may have went to a rival school. You got to respect the decision. Don't throw any bags of what at their house or send any threatening tweets or anything like that. These are 18-year-old kids. Respect the decision.